What does the word breakthrough mean for you? What comes to mind? Is there something specific in your own life? Maybe a major championship or a sporting event? As we go through this Core 4 blueprint, I'm going to reference some of your favorite players on some of your favorite teams. I'm also going to unpack the specific breakthrough season that led to a dynasty and cementing the status of the undisputed GOAT. But before we go there, let's look at the breakthrough season for some of your favorite players right now. During the 2014-2015 season, Jimmy Butler went from averaging 13 points per game to over 20 points per game on the same number of minutes. So he averaged more points, but also averaged more boards, more assists, more steals, fewer turnovers, and he became the focal point of the Bulls offense. 2014-2015 could also be considered the breakthrough season for another player known primarily for his defense. Fresh off a surprise Finals MVP performance where he was instrumental in helping to contain Miami's big three in D. Wade, Chris Bosh, and LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard upped his scoring average from 13 points to 17 points per game and also increased, again, his boards, his steals, and his assists. But one of the most remarkable breakthrough seasons in recent memory, and I think in history in the NBA, came after this player won not only the regular season MVP, but also their first championship. Steph Curry's 2015-2016 season is nothing short of spectacular. He upped his points by 7 points per game, going from 23 points to 30 points per game, and he also joined the illustrious 50-40-90 club, averaging 50% from the field, 90% from the free throw line, and over 45% from three. And he shot 5 threes per game. I think his season would have probably gone down as one of the greatest ever had it not been foiled by another historic event that happened that year, LeBron James' Cavs team coming back from a 3-1 deficit. If it wasn't for LeBron's heroics, Steph's 2015-2016 season probably would have gone down as one of the best individual NBA seasons ever. Not only for his individual accomplishments, but for how it's transformed the game entirely. Fast forward almost 10 years, and kids everywhere are focused on shooting the three. Offenses are focused exclusively on shooting the three. Three-point shooting has become the focal point of team offenses and individual skills training. In a team session with a college coach a few weeks ago, I was asking him about his expectations for players coming into his program. He's expecting them to be outside of their regular practice, to be shooting several hundred threes a day, and to be making between 30 and 40% of them. That's the Steph Curry impact. So we've looked at the breakthrough seasons of 3 current players, which brings us to the outer ring of the Core 4 blueprint, which is essentially physical ability, right? That's what most people think of when they think of sports. It's what you can do physically, what your body can do in whatever arena that it is that you're pursuing, right? It covers the widest area in terms of the different aspects of physicality. And it's also on the surface. We can go so much deeper, which we're going to go as we drill into the 4 cores. But physical development is the one that is the most prominent, and it's the one that most people spend most of their time focusing on. It's also, ironically, the one where we have limited control in terms of our impact on the game, right? There are a lot of things that boil down to genetics, for example. In basketball, in a sport that selects out for height, you really don't have much control over how tall you're going to be. The average person doesn't have a lot of control over whether they can be Mr. Olympia. There's a ton of genetic aspects that go into that, from muscle insertion to body structure. So physical, while it seems to be the core of most sports in the focus of sports development, it's also the area where we have a lot of limited control, and a lot of our God-given gifts are what determines how far we go. That being said, there is one aspect which we've just talked about in terms of physical development, which you have a lot of control over and which can separate you from the competition. And that is your skills and ability. If we go back and look at our 3 examples, Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard, and Steph Curry. When you're at the top of your game in terms of making it to the NBA, I mean, you're basically one of a few hundred people in the world that is ever going to make it to that level. Improving dramatically in certain areas, scoring, rebounding, assists, takes a whole different level of focused skill development. And that's what they did. in their off seasons, they tailored very specific skill development programs to look at what it is that they do best and also where some of their gaps are and how they can focus on incrementally increasing their skills in those gaps. Jimmy Butler improved his jump shot. Kawhi Leonard improved his efficiency around the basket and also his jump shooting ability. And Steph Curry, well, that one's almost a bit of a mystery. There's certainly some God-given talent and gifts in there for him, but it's also very scientific in terms of his approach to developing that specific skill and tweaking, making minute, detailed tweaks to his shooting and his technique and his form and his strength in order to improve on something that he was already doing very well. So most athletes spend a little bit too much time on core one, physical ability. And that makes sense. It's the one that most of us got into sports for the first place, right? It's the physical achievement, and it's why we watch sports. We're in awe of some of the accomplishments that some of these men and women can do out there on the court. What I would say though is that skills and skill development is the most important and most influential aspect of your physical ability. So here's a few questions to consider. The first is, at your position, what's one specific skill, one single skill that is going to have the single biggest impact for your role on the team that you're on right now? The second question related to that is, so how am I training that single skill strategically every single week? What am I doing? What actions am I taking? Do I have a structured plan? And how am I measuring progress? And that's question number 3. How are you measuring progress? What is it that you're doing from week to week to show that you're actually improving in that one single skill? So give these some thought. These questions are going to be included in your customizable training plan, which you can download at the end of the series. So at the end of each core, cores 1 through 4, you're going to get a customizable training plan specific to that core aspect of peak performance. But for now, write these down, give them some thought, think about them until you get to the training plan, and we'll see you in video 2.